We bid you welcome. We do not ask what you believe or expect you to think a certain way, but only that you try to live a kindly, helpful life with the dignity proper to a human being. Welcome all who believe that religion is wider than any sect and deeper than any set of opinions. Welcome all who might find in our friendship strength and encouragement for daily living. Good morning and welcome to the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. I am the Reverend Farley. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors today. After the service, you're welcome to socialize at the back of the meeting house. It's a little too cold to have an outdoor coffee hour today, but hopefully we'll have it back next week. And when indoors, we're observing COVID precautions and wearing masks, regardless of vaccination status. If you have a joy or sorrow you'd like to share, you can fill out a blue card and give it to an usher, and it will be read later in the service, or you can also text the phone number listed in the order of service. We have some announcements this morning, and I'd like to invite up the membership committee, followed by the Religious Education Committee. So could membership come up and share their announcement?
Good morning. This is a little convoluted. It's not necessarily just from the membership committee. It's also from building and grounds, and may also be what religious education was going to be talking about. But we're going to have a cleanup of the yards in the yard in the church. We try to do this every spring or so. It's going to be scheduled for April 24th, Sunday, 2 weeks from today. The plan is the RE kids are going to be out doing some stuff while we're in service, then we can go out and help out. Wear stuff, jeans, whatever you might be comfortable in to be outside. Bring rakes, clippers, all that sort of stuff. We'll have fun. We'll get the place cleaned up a little bit and go on from there. Thank you. Anything else?
Religious education.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Coker, the co-chair for the RE committee. Also on April 24th, in addition to the cleanup, the Peeps Show is also coming back. If you saw the slide, or if you remember from years past, the Peeps Show is when you use your creativity to create a diorama using Peeps, the Easter candy. People have done Goodnight Moon, Jurassic Park, historical scenes. Those will be due on April 24th. That is the week after Easter, so you can buy your Peeps on a discount and create your own diorama. If you don't want to create a diorama, make sure to bring your change on the 24th and then on May 1st as well. The dioramas will be set up either at the back of the meeting house or downstairs in Adams Hall, and you can vote for your favorite using your spare change from your car, from your pockets, whatever. All of that money will go towards the RE program. This is our one little fundraiser, so we would appreciate your participation. And also, yes, the kids will be doing the cleanup on April 24th. So if you want to join them, come equipped. And you can talk to membership or building and grounds if you have more questions about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. Everyone, please participate in the Peeps Show. Okay. I switched things up this. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to remind everyone that the Crop Hunger Walk is coming up on May 1st. And for people who don't know, the Crop Hunger Walk, what it does is it's to fight hunger in our community and around the world. 75% of the funds raised go to Church World Service that does good works around the world. And the other 25% goes to local food pantries. And we have some walkers who are walking in the Crop Hunger Walk this year, so you can give a contribution to them as well. And does everyone that's going to walk in the Crop Hunger Walk, can you stand up or? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I switched up our affirmation of mission this morning, and I put in one from the UU Church of Las Cruces, New Mexico, which as we go through our sermon today, it'll become clear. So we're saying a different one, and it's printed in your order of service, and I invite you to recite it with me now. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Okay, our opening hymn this morning is not printed in the order of service, but I'm going to tell you what it is. It's number 396. I know this rose will open. And it's a beautiful hymn, but it's a little irregular, and so Diana's going to play it through fully one time so we can recognize it, and then we'll all sing it together 3 times. There we go. 397. No, 396, sorry. This morning, I plan to recount to you a summary of the life of Clyde Tombaugh, and then reflect on it together and glean what can be of value to you and I. Clyde was born in 1906 in Streator, Illinois. When he was 16, his family moved to a farm in Burdett, Kansas. Clyde was the oldest child and was expected to work the farm as a child and as he matured into young adulthood. Clyde loved to finish his farm work each day and in the late evenings to gaze up at the stars. With a borrowed telescope, he was able to see even more of the night sky, in more detail, of the moon and planets and stars. Clyde was a seeker. Clyde wished to learn more about the heavens, but resources were an impediment. Clyde wanted a more powerful telescope to satisfy his fascination with the universe, but his family could not afford one. So he built one himself, using parts from a grain elevator, a cream separator, and an old car axle, together with lenses and mirrors he had ground himself. He did this as a teenager, well before he could look up how to do it on the internet, and there were no astronomers in Burdeck, Kansas in the 1920s. He figured it out from books and trial and error and ingenuity. Clyde wanted to go to college to study and learn, but his family couldn't afford the cost. The story goes that his parents told him they would send him to college if they had a good crop at the upcoming harvest, as they would have some extra cash. And so began 3 bum crop years in a row. Clyde was dejected, considering giving up his dream of a different life for himself. But he continued with his night sky observations. He would aim his telescope at Jupiter and Mars and sketch in his notebook drawings of what he saw. And he would mail his drawings to professional astronomers. He sent one set of drawings to the director of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona in 1929. The observatory director at the time was so impressed by the young man, an amateur with no college degree and no formal training, he offered Clyde a trial assistantship. And so Tombaugh bought a one-way train ticket to Arizona. Now, Lowell Observatory is a fascinating story in and of itself. It was founded by Percival Lowell of the Lowell family of Massachusetts, a blue-blooded, wealthy Boston Brahmin family. Percival was born into wealth and turned it into significantly more wealth for himself. I found it written nowhere that he was raised Unitarian, but he certainly came from that ethos. Many of his extended family were. James Russell Lowell was the poet and writer. There were Unitarian ministers in the family tree, and his own brother was president of Harvard University for nearly 30 years. Percival Lowell graduated from Harvard with distinction, majored in the sciences, and traveled extensively in Asia. He came back to the United States and was convinced of 2 things. 1, there were canals on Mars that were constructed by intelligent life forms. And 2, that there was a planet beyond Neptune that made Neptune wobble in its orbit, which he dubbed Planet X. The canals on Mars wasn't as far-fetched as it would seem. In the 1890s, there was an Italian astronomer, Giovanni Schiaparelli, who claimed he discovered Canals, which is Italian for canals, on Mars. And he was reporting on channels crisscrossing the surface of the red planet. But the English translation to canals fired up excitement in Lowell. I've read varied explanations of why these early astronomers saw canals on Mars. One explanation is that it was just an optical illusion by imperfect telescopes or dust blown across the surface of Mars by heavy winds. And the other was just the human tendency to see patterns where there isn't any pattern. Either way, Percival Lowell built the Lowell Observatory to get further along in his 2 hypotheses. He was unsuccessful, and he died at age 61 in 1916. He led a very eccentric life, but the bulk of his estate was left to continue the work of the observatory. Clyde Tumble arrived in Flagstaff 15 years after Percival Lowell's death in January of 1929. The trial assistantship he had was grueling. It was Clyde's job to lead tours, to throw giant logs in the furnace, and to clear the frequent heavy snows from the observatory's canvas dome, as well as renew the search for Lowell's Planet X. The astronomy work was tedious. Tombaugh worked alone through each night in the unheated high-altitude dome, taking long exposure photographs of the outer solar system. Once he had 2 clear photos within a few days of each other, he used a machine called a blink comparator that rapidly alternated them. Stars would appear stationary, but anything that orbited, asteroids, comets, planets, would seem to jump or blink as it alternated between the 2 photos. Each photo could have between 50,000 and 400,000 dots of light, and every inch had to be scrutinized. He would stare at it and then rest his eyes every 20 minutes and switch to other tasks after an hour. Tombaugh dreaded the Milky Way, writing in his book years later, "It was like plunging into a jungle." But his diligence and young, sharp eyes paid off. On February 18th, 1930, he found a tiny dot orbiting very close to Lowell's prediction on a pair of photos he had taken in January. After just 13 months of work, Tombaugh's discovery rocked the astronomical and academic world. He wrote in the margins, "Finally, Planet X." The discovery was made on Tuesday, February 18th, 1930, using images taken the previous month. The name Pluto was suggested by Venita Burney, then an 11-year-old English schoolgirl, who died in April of 2009, having lived to see the reclassification of Pluto as a dwarf planet. It won out over numerous other suggestions because it was the name of the Roman god of the underworld who was able to render himself invisible, and because Percival Lowell's initials, PL, formed the first two letters of Pluto. The name Pluto was officially adopted on May 1st, 1930. Clyde continued on at Lowell Observatory on and off for many more years. He eventually returned to Kansas to get his education at the University of Kansas, which was founded by Amos Adams Lawrence, Percival Lowell's maternal great-uncle. Out of respect for his accomplishments, the professors at Kansas refused to allow him to take Introduction to Astronomy when he first enrolled as a freshman. It was in Lawrence, Kansas, that Clyde first discovered Unitarianism. Tombaugh worked there at Lowell on and off from 1929 to 1945. He remained at Lowell until he was called to service during World War II. The astronomer taught navigation to the U.S. Navy at Arizona State Teachers College in Flagstaff from 1943 to 1945. After the war, Lowell was unable to rehire Tombaugh due to a funding shortfall. So in 1946, he returned to work for the military at the Ballistics Research Laboratories of the White Sands Missile Range near Las Cruces, New Mexico. He finally settled in Las Cruces, New Mexico in 1955 with a mandate to create and build up the astronomy department at New Mexico State University. That very same year, 1955, Clyde, with his wife Patsy, along with many students, founded the Unitarian Church of Las Cruces, and was active member throughout his life until his death at age 90 in 1997. A curriculum compiled by the UUA on Clyde Tombaugh says this about this time in his life. All his life, Clyde loved learning about the universe and sharing it with others. He helped other people investigate the sky, sometimes using the huge 2-story telescope he built in his own backyard. He loved learning so much that he and his wife helped to start a Unitarian Universalist church when they lived in New Mexico. Clyde knew a congregation, like an observatory, could be a very good place for seeking truth. Clyde once wrote, "I always wanted to know what was on the other side of the mountain." Clyde was a punster and always had a one-line quip to share. According to his wife Patsy, one Sunday morning at church, the clock at the back of the sanctuary stopped working. Clyde remarked, "I'm so sorry that clock had such an untimely death." Clyde also seemed to be a character. He would grind lenses and mirrors for the telescope in a large machine he set up in his home kitchen. He would do this while his wife, Patsy, was trying to cook dinner for the family. Particle dust would get everywhere. Tombaugh developed innovations in telescopic instruments and photographed 2/3 of the sky. Over his career, he discovered 6 star clusters, 2 comets, hundreds of asteroids, and several dozen clusters of galaxies, 1 supercluster, and a rare exploding nova. According to his wife, he was a little frustrated he was really only associated with the Pluto discovery. He really loved the universe and had done other things worth mentioning, but people always connected him with Pluto. Few astronomers have seen the sky in such detail. As Tombaugh liked to say, "I've really had a tour of the heavens." The UU Church of Las Cruces dedicated a stained glass window in his honor in 2001, 4 years after his death. Friends and colleagues of the Tombaughs raised funds to commission the window as a gift to the 175-member congregation. The 5-paneled window is 8 feet tall and 18 feet wide and is located on the east side of the church where it catches the morning light. Its theme is the universe and our solar system, interspersed with depictions of Tombaugh's childhood in Kansas, his passion for teaching, and his work with rockets, telescopes, NASA, and the White Sands mission base. A banner stretching across the panel quotes from the church's affirmation, that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Tombaugh Elementary School in Las Cruces, New Mexico is also named for him. In August of 1992, Jet Propulsion Lab scientist Robert Sala called Tombaugh requesting permission to visit his planet. I told him he was welcome to it, Tombaugh later remembered, though he's got to go on a long, cold trip. That call eventually led to the launch of the New Horizons space probe to Pluto, which blasted off in 2006. It took it 9 years to reach Pluto, and it passed by it on July 14th, 2015. There's a large heart-shaped flat region of Pluto, and at that time it was named Tombaugh Regio. Also in 2015, NASA released a statement of some of the information they learned about Pluto that was previously unknown. They discovered that if you stood on the surface of Pluto, you'd look up at a blue sky, just like on Earth, and you might find your feet on the red ice of a frozen lake. They also found some evidence of planetary activity, such as plate tectonics of some kind on Pluto as well, which was not expected. The New Horizons spacecraft was over 4.5 light hours away from Earth. So when they transmitted data back to Earth, they could only transmit 1 to 2 bytes of data per second. And the download to all the complete data took over 16 months, and the analysis of it continues. So why did I tell this story this morning? Because I wanted to slip in a little 19th century New England religious history about the Lowell family? Perhaps. Perhaps. I think the core reason I taught it is because Clyde Tumbaugh's life represents a life of integration. What do I mean by integration? I think Clyde knew what he was doing in 1955 when he got the professorship at New Mexico State University with a mandate to build the astronomy department. That very same year, he was involved in founding the Unitarian Church of Las Cruces. He knew he would not have to leave his mind at the threshold when he entered the church sanctuary. Sadly, there are many religious or spiritual communities where some part of your intellect must be left behind, or some part of your heart must be left behind, or some aspect of your body or identity isn't welcomed. All of these limits one's spirit and are not conducive to spiritual growth. Integration in that his scientific work and his religious community and his personal spiritual journey and his family life could all be one, part and parcel of the same thrust. When we are not allowed to bring our full selves forward, it is at best counterproductive to the spiritual journey, and at worst a form of spiritual abuse or spiritual violence. The spiritual journey is indeed a journey of integration. The English word religion derives from the Latin verb religare, to bind together that which has been separated. How can you begin to love your neighbor as yourself when you don't even love all the parts of yourself? How can you recognize the unity of all existence when a few aspects of yourself are hovering outside the foyer doors? The spiritual journey as an individual level is often a reluctant journey, of venturing into the shadowy places, the avoided places, the places we don't want to go. The poet Rumi writes, "The cure for pain is in the pain." So these questions of integration versus disintegration or separation, integration is a key component of the spiritual journey. Where have I been? How can I integrate that experience in such a way that enables me to move forward? The Reverend Victoria Safford is a retired minister of the White Bear UU Church in Minnesota. She writes of her discovery of Unitarian Universalism as a young adult, first through the writings of William Ellery Channing. She says, "For me, it was astonishing to discover this tradition. I was a young adult flailing about at large out there when I accidentally stumbled upon the writings of Channing. A door opened to me. Here was someone in print, someone who wrote in 1819, asking the unspeakable questions I'd been asking, doubting the truths that I'd been doubting, clearly defining the moral ideas, the theological ideas that I had harbored all along as crazy. Here was a religion welcoming science and reason while honoring mystery and wonder. Here was a religion concerned more with deeds than creeds, a church that in its Sunday schools apparently taught children to think and act and feel, to know their hearts instead of to recite. I felt not as if my soul were saved, but as if myself were somehow integrated, my integrity restored, as mind and heart and soul were reunited, as if after a long, strange, unnatural parting of the ways. Ours is a saving church, and by that I mean that lives are saved within it. People say that. They use the old vocabulary. They say, I never knew there was a place like this where I could be accepted. They say, I never knew there could be a congregation that believed as I do. They say, I walked out of the church as soon as I was old enough, but until I came here, I had no idea how deeply I was longing for connection to other people and also to the sacred. They say, I was a spiritual shipwreck, and I'm still drifting, but at least at last I have a home. As if myself were somehow integrated, my integrity restored, as mind and heart and soul were reunited, as if after a long, strange, unnatural parting of the ways. Welcoming science and reason while honoring mystery and wonder. Her words were where I got the title of the service this morning from. When the New Horizons spacecraft took off in 2005 to begin its 3 billion-mile journey to Pluto and beyond into interstellar space, it was the very epitome of cutting-edge science and mathematical precision. There was a container aboard the New Horizons. It has an inscription which read as follows: Interned herein are remains of American Clyde W. Tombaugh, discoverer of Pluto and the solar system's third zone, Adele and Murren's boy, Patricia's husband, Annette and Alden's father, astronomer, teacher, punster, and friend. Clyde Tombaugh, 1906 to 1997. NASA sent a small portion of Clyde's ashes placed aboard the New Horizons spacecraft. I could highlight many things after sharing the story of Clyde Tombaugh: the importance of asking questions, seeking answers, and asking more questions, the value of hard work, persistence, and focus. However, in telling this story, I actually was moved the most by something else. I was struck most in the story with the camaraderie, the kindness, and respect of the scientific community towards Clyde, giving him a shot as an uneducated kid. They didn't have to do that, but they did. Refusing to allow him to take Introduction to Astronomy. They didn't have to do that, but they did. Calling to ask if they can visit his planet after he was retired for 2 decades at that point. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And sending a piece of him out to fly by the planet he discovered to share with all of us. They didn't have to do that, but they did. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love, wrote Carl Sagan. These acts were a profound act of gratitude, of recognition, of acknowledgement we stand on the hard work and accomplishments of those who have gone before us. That is honoring mystery and wonder. I ask you to join in a moment of stillness and silence with me together. We are stardust. We come from the stars, and we return to stardust and return to the stars. May it be so. Amen. I messed up the order, and I think you guys already did the offertory, but I had a really funny words for the offertory, so I still want to say it, and then we'll listen to the music. I know, but I think they collected it during it. Oh, did they? I think so. So I'm going to say my tax joke, and then we'll listen to the moon dance that Diana will play for us. So as we receive the offering, as we near April 15th, let us remember that which we render unto God is deductible from that which we render unto Caesar. Okay. Yeah. Good point for pledges, too, our president says. Okay, now we'll hear the moon dance by Diana. Thank you. At this time, I invite anyone who is visiting or a guest, if you're comfortable doing so, I invite you to stand and please tell us where you're from and how you heard about us. Any guests or visitors? I think I recognize just about everybody today. Okay. A perfect heart is one that has known love and loss, joy and sorrow. The perfect heart is one that has been shared. As joys and sorrows of our community are shared, please direct your energy, prayers, and meditations as gifts of compassion and strength. Is there any? Where do we come from?
This is a newer hymn that Diana and Reverend Glenn picked, so they asked me to help lead it. So I think, Diana, were we going to do how? One?
Every line 2 times.
Each line's going to be 2 times. So.
Here's the intro.
For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love.